Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of More to Explore, where we keep you up to date with everything happening here on Explore.org. And today we're featuring two brand new cameras just launching today, earlier this morning, the Masai Mara River crossing cams. And it looks like we're just getting into the evening hour, so I cut to just a clip of this is the fig tree cam just an hour ago. We had some great hippo action. Like I mentioned, we have two new cams. We have the main crossing cam and fig tree cam that we're going to learn all about here in just a few minutes. And then, of course, stick around for Egg Watch. So let's jump right into it. My name is Brian Bird, and I'm joined today once again by Explode.org's resident naturalist, Mike Fitz. Mike, good afternoon.
Hi, Brian. How are you doing today?
Doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. And I'm happy to be here once again. So thanks for inviting me back. And for those of you new to Explode.org, welcome to the community. And of course, welcome back to all of our longtime viewers. Explode.org has about 200 live cameras all over the world. So we are the world's largest live nature cam network. If you have questions, comments for Brian and I, let us know in the chats during the program today. I think we're going to have time to look for those, especially during the first half of the program, because we're going to cut to some previews and an interview about the Masai Mara cams. And these are really exciting because, in Kenya, in Tanzania, there's a special combination of weather and food availability and predators and reproductive cycles of animals and social learning and instincts. All of those things have driven the evolution of one of Earth's great migrations. In fact, the migration of more than 1 million wildebeest and hundreds of thousands of zebras, gazelles, and other animals across the Masai Mara and Serengeti is often called the Great Migration. We're going to have an opportunity to see part of that migration on these two new cams. So let's look at what's in store on these newest webcams with this preview from our webcam partner at Africam. Well, that was pretty great. Brian, you want to end the show there?
Yeah, right. There it is. Wrap it up.
I mean, yeah, these cams are going to be pretty amazing. And you've likely seen it on television or in photographs. It's perhaps been depicted as the wall of wildebeest moving across a muddy river while avoiding crocodiles. The experience is no longer limited to far-flung safaris or television nature documentaries. So you now have the opportunity to watch it on Explode.org thanks to our partnership with Africam and the Mara Conservancy. I was curious to learn more about the Great Migration and the webcams that'll take us there. So I spoke with Simon Terry, a field and conservation lead with Africam. Here is our conversation. Simon, great to have you back on Explode.org. Good to see you.
Hi, thanks, Mike. It's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
And help me as an ignorant North American understand the geography of the landscape. Where are these cameras located in, and what is significant about that landscape?
Okay, great. So these two are both these cameras will be situated along the Mara River, which is an infamous river in the southern part of Kenya. So it is right below, right on the southern end of Kenya, and then on the border to Tanzania, in the northern part of Tanzania. So inside of that northern part of the reserve is called the Masai Mara, and these cameras will both be along that river, which is very, very exciting.
And I understand there's going to be two cameras there. Other than the camera names, we're going to call them different things. What are some of the significant differences between them? What will the different viewpoints allow us to see?
Sure. So the first one, called Fig Tree, this is a wildebeest crossing area, and it is very close to the border of Tanzania. And this location is extremely exciting because as the migration continues and they approach this part of the country, this is where large amounts of wildebeest will be crossing the rivers. As we know, it's a massive migration with over 1 million wildebeest and hundreds of thousands of other antelope following along on the journey. So this location will be one of the first spots where they enter the Masai Mara Reserve and they'll be crossing the river. So that's extremely exciting. And then further up, we have on the more northern parts of the river, we have the second camera at Main River Crossing, which is another really exciting spot. I mean, you've got an ever-present population of hippos and crocodiles in the area. Both of these, all along the river, wherever there's a crossing point, there's so many crocodiles just waiting around for the migration to come late in the year for one of their first meals of the year. And up there, we are still waiting to see how much of the migration will go that far up and to see what exactly we'll be capturing. We're hoping to see large amounts of zebra because they particularly like that part of the reserve as well. So we'll be seeing, large amounts of all kinds of animals, even outside of the migration season. Important to note, I mean, I'm going to be watching this camera year round because we'll have giraffe, we'll have elephant, and if we're lucky, we'll even have predators crossing the river, which is extremely exciting.
And I know that you were helping with the cam installation. So what was your role, and did you encounter any special challenges while installing the cams?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, out in the middle of Africa, it's definitely the Wild West over there. And I was lucky enough to spend the last month in this reserve working on this project, and we were installing these cameras along the way. And I mean, yeah, like I mentioned, it's such a wild landscape. Ahead of every morning before going to the site, you'd have to go with some rangers and we'll have to assess the landscape to see what's going on. Sometimes we couldn't get to the site because there'd be a big herd of lion lurking around and maybe using the tree for shade. So it was very interesting. But we'd go out there, and my most important role is I go out there with one objective, and that's to find the most epic location and choose the best spot to put the camera there, and then just to make everything else work around that. So yeah, it was really exciting. It was definitely a challenge. There's no connectivity, there's no infrastructure, no power in these locations. So we had to build all the infrastructure on site and do it in a discreet manner that doesn't impact the wildlife or the environment. And yeah, we had a great success with that, and now we have finally complete that installation. It went really well.
And I'm excited to see the seasonality of the place, see how it changes from month to month, from the rainy seasons into the dry seasons, to see the animals moving through depending on what they're doing in the time of the year. And I've read that rainfall in the area is kind of bimodal. That is, there's like two rainy seasons. There's a longer rainy season that lasts about 8 weeks in March through May, then a shorter rainy season that arrives for about 4 weeks, November, December-ish. I'm curious really about the plant growth, first of all, because the plants are the foundation of the ecosystem. Will we see two flushes of plant growth coinciding with those two rainy seasons?
Yeah, absolutely. That's right on the head. I mean, well, for the purpose of the migration, our focus will definitely be on that first rainy season early in the year. They both bring tremendous plant growth and biomass to the area following the rains, but that first season is what's important because to understand it, if you look at the migration as a whole, it's not like many other migrations where the wildlife move to and fro between two different points. It's actually a circular migration that's constantly in motion, and it lasts for a 1 year cycle. So the wildebeest are basically constantly following the rain because the rain brings grass, and where there's grass, there's food. So they are always following following the rains and following the plant growth, and following that first rainfall period that we'll have, ending in May, the plants will grow substantially, and then that will onset the migration in this area. So it'll be important to note that round about July to October is the migration season in this area. So after that initial rain, they'll start arriving in July.
And where there are plants, there are animals. The Mara River flows through an area where more than 1 million wildebeest reside. And you've kind of answered this question, at least part of it already, talking about the circular migration. So we know that there's lush plant life available to support, such a large concentration of herbivores. But I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more about that. What makes this region of Africa so productive for wildebeest and other herbivores?
I mean, that's a really good example of what this landscape is. To me, it's just true abundance. Everywhere you go, and it's one of the wildest places in the world, and it's one of the areas where you can get the most abundance of wildlife. It's truly phenomenal. Wherever you go, it's not like in certain other areas of Africa where you'll maybe spot one lion or two elephant. There's herds of just giant herds of wildlife. And of course, the migration is the perfect testament to that. So it's upwards of 1.5 million animals moving around in this area. And it's a great example of how wild the area is, how much landscape is still open, and how wildlife can thrive if you give it the space to do so. And I think that's a big reason as to why it still exists in the way it does, is it's still such a wild landscape. It's a constant effort to keep it that way. Of course, fighting development in the area is an ongoing challenge that'll definitely be everlasting, but it still remains a really wild space where the animals can move somewhat freely, and there's so much wild space for them to graze, and they require that, because without that, the migration won't happen, and the ecosystem will definitely suffer for it.
And 1 to 2 million large animals is a number of animals in a biomass that's really kind of hard to imagine. But there are many more species that call the area home. You kind of mentioned a little bit about what you're looking forward to seeing. So what are you looking forward to seeing throughout the different seasons?
I mean, of course, the migration is the star of the show. I can't wait to see, as you said, it's almost unfathomable, the high amount of wildlife that you'll be seeing. So, of course, we're looking forward to seeing that. We're looking forward to seeing the zebra and the gazelle that will be moving along with them. But what's also really exciting is in the Mara Triangle region where we have these cameras set up, it's particularly dense in wildlife. And I mean, the reserve itself is only 510 square kilometers. And it's one of the only places in the world where you can see the big five in about 5 kilometers square if you're lucky on the right day. So we've got good populations of lion, leopard, buffalo, elephant, rhino even. And then, of course, you've still got other species such as cheetah, which is really exciting. And all of this could potentially be seen on the camera. We've heard of predators crossing the river, which is something that I think would be great to witness. I think that'll probably be my number one thing as well.
And when's the peak season for the migration?
So, of course, it depends on where you are. So, because the migration is constantly going on, but in this area, the peak season. So, I mentioned it's July to October is the general range, but it's also important to note that these are estimates, and it's all up to what Mother Nature ends up doing this year round, and it's becoming continuously more predictable to determine, more unpredictable, and more difficult to determine where the wildlife is and how they'll be moving. But it's pretty fair to say that August it could be as early as July, but we're expecting to see our first crossings in August, and we'll continue to see them going back and forth in that area throughout August and September. Crossings as they enter the reserve, going back, and just generally getting a large amount of crossings. And then in September, most of the herd will be grazing around in the area. The young that they had 6 months ago will be growing strong and getting ready to continue the migration back into Serengeti. And then in about October, you should still be getting lots of migration as well, lots of crossings at the river as they start moving back down again. So it's definitely between July and October is when you should really be watching the camera to see if you might capture something.
Some animal migrations are they kind of follow like a bell curve if you're looking at like the number of animals moving at one time. Like there's just kind of like a trickle at first and then like a huge number, and then it tapers off fairly quickly, but kind of continues for a while after that. Does the migration for the wildebeest and other animals like build like that with increasing numbers of animals, or is it more like a single large wave moving across the landscape? Because that's how it's depicted, at least on television. It's like, hey, look at
Yeah,
this wall of wildebeest. I'm wondering
yeah.
what's it actually like though, for the animals.
I mean, it's definitely is when you witness it, it definitely is like a giant wall of wildlife just because the numbers are so high. But realistically, you're only seeing a small part of that of the herd in itself because it's so large. So I'd say it's less of either of those, and it's more of like multiple pulses and streams of wildlife going in and out of the area, and then sometimes converging at the river. So they're all moving depending on where they think they'll be able to get the best grazing and following the water, as I mentioned, and it's all environmentally determined. So they come in waves, and then what's exciting is on this camera, we'll be capturing the convergence of that. So maybe there it will definitely be more of a wall because they'll be converging at the edge of the river, and that's when things get really excited and people start crowding around and you want to see this crossing and they'll gather up to the point of the river and then everyone you just wait and the wildebeest will all be standing there clearly very scared. I mean, they've got a lot to be afraid of. There's giant crocodiles in the river, there's hippos, there's predators probably right waiting on the other side. So much wildlife depending on feeding on this migration. And then it only takes one to jump into the river and then it's like thousands and thousands just storming across the river. I think it's unlike any other event in the world. Many people have mentioned that it's like watching a sports event. You know, everyone's voting for the wildebeest to make it and to cross the river, but then you've got the crocs and the lions trying to attack them. I think it's really phenomenal, and some of them get stampeded on. It's definitely a brutal show as well. But yeah, I think it's one of nature's most fantastic phenomenons.
Yeah, and I've listened to some of the commentary on like the Africam and Wild Moments show that we have in partnership with you on it on explore.org, and I forget which host was talking about it, but they mentioned like if you need to cross a river in Africa like on foot, never do it in the same place because the crocodiles quickly learn like patterns like that. And
Yeah.
it seems like maybe the crocodiles kind of know through experience. They know the time of the year. The lions as well. They know the time of the year. They know the vulnerability of the animals. So that's probably something that we can watch for, looking for those predators to kind of exploit weaknesses in the herds, and also just like that those pinch points, like they're going to know where those animals are going to be crossing.
Absolutely. That's exactly what we're going to be seeing happening over there. I mean, there are certain crossing points where the wildebeest will be crossing the river, and the crocodiles are very aware of that. So, especially from now, you already see them start congregating around that area. And like I mentioned, there's so many other wildlife predators depending on this migration. So they know exactly when it's coming and they'll be around. Even right now, when you can see it's like they've made, the crocodiles especially have made their home around the crossing points. There's such high numbers of them, which is amazing because I mean, seeing so many crocodiles just attacking those large herds of wildebeest is going to be great. And then, of course, yeah, the lions, the cheetahs, maybe even leopard will be waiting on the other side as well, possibly hiding behind a bush, ready to approach when the wildebeest cross. And they're all very aware of what's going on. And I'm sure there's many ways that they can figure that out. It's probably not very easy to hide 1.5 million wildebeest. So there will be a lot of animals following along.
And you mentioned that the like kind of like the peak migration season is going to be like July through October, but there's always going to be something to watch on the cameras. What would you recommend that people look for on the cameras outside of like the peak migration season?
Yeah, that's also one of the most exciting parts. I mean, I mentioned the ever-present population of hippos and crocodiles. The hippos in this area are extremely active, the most active I've ever seen, constantly fighting each other and fighting for territory. So they're always around. I've never been at the river where there weren't hippos and crocodiles. Lots of crocodiles. There's baby crocodiles, there's massive ones. So they'll always be there. And then even during my time there, we were lucky enough to witness three elephant crossings, which is awesome. I mean, the river's still flowing quite strong, so watching a big, powerful bull elephant push through the water and then even have to swim at some parts is really exciting. And yes, as I mentioned before, there's topi, there's lion, there's all these so many different wildlife in this area, the big five. All of them could potentially be crossing the river, so that's the main thing to be looking out for. We also have two lion prides to specifically look out for. So in at each of the cameras, there's two different two different prides, one known as Maji Chafu, which loosely translates to dirty water, and the other is called Baghdad. And these are two of the three biggest lion prides in the Mara Triangle. We already couldn't visit the site once during our installation because we had the Baghdad pride at the location. So yeah, that's quite exciting. We'll definitely be seeing them along the banks of the river as well.
You told me about a second component of the webcam network in a sense, because you helped install two cameras on top of the Rangers anti-harassment vehicles. These I understand they're not cameras for the public, so they're not visible to the public. But what are they for? How do they work? What are they going to be used for?
Yeah, this is a really exciting conservation initiative that we've been working on with Africam alongside with explore.org. And we're hoping we can make a big difference in the reserve as well, because the Conservancy has a team of rangers who are responsible to make sure that guides and people driving in the reserve on safari are following the rules. So they're responsible for finding and stopping transgressors, so people who litter, who speed, who are overcrowd sightings, get out of their vehicles in places where they aren't allowed, and make noise or do anything to disturb the wildlife should be held accountable. So it's potentially quite challenging for these rangers to capture everyone and to capture the evidence of each transgression that's taken place. So in this initiative, we installed two of our high power cameras, the same as what we use for our live cameras, on top of the vehicles, which is something we're all very excited about, that they can now use to film and capture transgressors and hopefully contribute to conservation in the area.
Then I just have a couple more questions for you, but I am curious about what watching this camera can teach us about the importance of connected landscapes, connected habitats for wildlife in the Masai Mara and the Serengeti and beyond, because this is an area where the wildlife depend on an ecosystem that transcends international boundaries, right? It's not like one nation can say this is ours. This is something that multiple or many different groups of people need to be involved in protecting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see this in the rangers in the area and the different conservation groups. You can see that working together is extremely important. It's fundamental to ensuring that this ecosystem continues to work effectively. So there's a lot of situations where people are working together, and I think it ties on what I mentioned earlier about how important it is to keep these landscapes wild and to keep wildlife corridors open, because if too much development takes place in an area, then it could potentially affect the migration. This has happened before. We've seen how the migration can be affected by development, and too much could bring this to an end, which will send the entire ecosystem into collapse. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic example of keeping places wild and people working together. You can see in the locals, it is part of their culture to take a lot of pride in the wildlife and into keeping these areas wild and ensuring that it can continue to thrive.
My final question for you, Simon, is I'm a little bit curious about your background. How did you get involved in conservation and working with webcams? Because that's, often when people think, hey, I want to do some work in conservation, they're not thinking about maybe the technical side of things, installing webcams and things like that. Maybe they're thinking about, oh, I want to be a field researcher, which is really fun and it can be a fantastic job and way to spend your time. But yeah, can you tell us just a little bit more about your background, and if you had any advice for a younger person, a student who's looking to get involved in conservation, what advice could you give them?
Absolutely. Thank you. I think we're all custodians for this planet that we live on and this wild space. And I think it's great to be able to work in a career where you can potentially make a difference. And I think that's what we're doing over here is a great example of how, as you mentioned, webcams and new technology can potentially make a difference to protecting our wildlife. So yeah, in the area that we have these cameras up, there's so many new and ongoing challenges, and sometimes you find that technology can be the solution. We've got now rangers in the area operating drones and using tracking devices to help protect wildlife. And now I think these webcams are a new leg of that. So we of course we bring people closer to nature with with the live cameras. And we believe if you see nature and you know nature, then you'll know to protect it and you'll fall in love with it, and then more people will put in the effort to save the environment. And yeah, so now we've combined that once again with this conservation initiative that we're hoping can make a big difference in the reserve as well.
Well, Simon, I want to thank you for your time today. I'm really excited for the new cameras. I think they're going to be amazing to watch. So thanks for sharing your knowledge about them, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you again.
Thanks so much, Mike. I can't wait for these cameras to go live. It was great to be on your show. Cheers.
And thanks again to Simon Terry, who is a field and conservation lead with Africam. If you want to check out the work of Africam and really see their full suite of webcams, go to africam.com. A lot of information, a lot of stuff to watch there. And of course, we have a subset of those cameras on explore.org. And if you want to watch those, do so, including our other cameras in Africa, anytime, including the Masai Mara cams at explore.org/Africa. Brian, we did have one audience question came in, I think from Flower Bear, who perhaps joined the program a little bit late, and that's cool. We don't mind people tuning in a little bit late. But Flower Bear is wondering, when are these new cams going live? Well, Flower Bear, you're in luck. They're live right now. So yeah, we're experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties on the explore.org side of things. So there's been some hiccups on the website today, a little bit of bugs. So if anybody's wondering about that, we're working through those. But yeah, you can check it out now. The Masai Mara cams, both of those are have gone live today, and they're going to be streaming as long as the equipment functions 24/7 throughout the year. It's going to be really exciting to see. Of course, Brian, we talk about this a lot on our cameras on explore.org, but we can go around the world essentially through our webcams on explore.org and see like these amazing things, maybe like a migration of animals or hippos in a river in Africa, and then we can almost bring ourselves back home to a bird nest that we have fallen in love with, and we have many of those to highlight still.
Definitely. I know. And especially with the peak season of these two cams being in summer, if you didn't have enough summer viewing already on explore.org, here's just two more. But as you mentioned, let's get back to what is happening now. We have so many active nests, from new eggs, new chicks, and new fledges. So let's get this week's update on Egg Watch.
This is our May 4th, 2026 edition of Egg Watch. We're going to check on the bird nesting activity of our myriad cams on explore.org. And this update includes new nests with the hope for new life, and also reminders of the vulnerability of young birds. And we're going to start with that latter idea right now, because if you look at that white-eyed vireo clip on the left, we were looking forward to those chicks fledging, but they were only a few days old before a blue jay found them and took them out of the nest there. Thankfully, though, we have other cameras with other songbirds to watch with our partners at Texas Backyard Wildlife, including a black-crested titmouse. And this is a species that's endemic to the south central U.S. and especially Texas in northeast Mexico. So if you want to see them, you can't see them in my area of the world. You're going to have to go to that sort of south central part of North America. And I think there's at least 3 eggs in this nest. The first one was laid on April 28. And when the bird starts incubating, when the mother starts incubating, she'll incubate for about 2 weeks. So hatching could be middle of May, I think, with that camera. There's also a northern cardinal nest that our partners with Texas Backyard Wildlife found the other day, and there's a camera streaming on that as well. They report that there's 2 eggs in that nest. And incubation lasts less than 2 weeks, 11 to 13 days with them. So maybe hatching May 16 through 18 in that nest. We also want to celebrate the success of some hummingbirds that did well over the past several weeks. Our Anna's hummingbirds in Santee, California, both Joy and Beatrix fledged their young. Joy, her chicks fledged her 2 on April 20th, and then Beatrix had her chicks fledge on April 26th. So this isn't the end of our hummingbird story on explore.org. We're hoping to get some other hummingbird nests on camera later this spring and into early summer. But look at that, one of Joy's busy birds getting ready to leave the nest. So congratulations to those hardworking mamas. And they can have more than one clutch per breeding season. So maybe they're at work getting ready for another set of eggs. Let's think about larger birds, though. Head to talk about some peregrine falcons now, because their nests are very active right now in the Baltimore, Maryland, or excuse me, in downtown Baltimore, Maryland, with our Chesapeake Falcons, Bo and Barb. They have 5 eggs. They are incubating them now. Incubation lasts about 30 days. We're not quite in that time frame yet for them to hatch. I think mid-May is a better window for those eggs to hatch. And that single egg on the left, that was from a first clutch that is abandoned. So it's just kind of baking there in the sun. That is an egg that I definitely do not want to break open. I think it'll eventually get smashed there. The other eggs, as far as we know, are still viable. But yeah, mid-May for those chicks. And thanks to our partner at the Chesapeake Conservancy there. With our falcon nest that we're watching with the Raptor Resource Project, Great Spirit Bluff, congratulations to Elaine and Newman, because they have 3 ISs in their box right now. They're going to grow rapidly, but we're going to be able to watch them through early to mid-June before they fledge. So 3 young birds in there growing day by day. And then we're coming very close to an expected hatch at Castle Rock near Fountain City, Wisconsin, with Faber and Elsa. Their eggs were laid really right at the beginning, the very end of March, very beginning of April. So yeah, sometime I think the hatch window is really going to start to open for these birds around May 5 or 6. And then bald eagles. Good news at these nests. Everything is right now kind of hunky-dory and the chicks are growing well. They all look healthy, but we had quite a bit of drama last week at the Frasier Point nest on Santa Cruz Island in California with Andor and Cruz. Again, 3 chicks in that nest. They were all doing really, really well. And eagle nests are generally secure places for eaglets. But eaglets, like all of us, they're fallible creatures. And the third chick that hatched in this nest made a mistake early in the overnight hours last week on April 24. And that mistake nearly led to disaster. So this is about 3:41 a.m. local time on April 24. The chick that we're moving kind of closer to the cam is nicknamed Ryder. So Ryder shuffled to the edge of the nest. Perhaps the darkness of the night impaired Ryder's sense of location. We're really not sure. Maybe the reason for Ryder's sort of exploration here doesn't matter, but Ryder soon found themselves struggling at the nest rim. And that's kind of like the important thing, because Ryder was over there for something like 20 minutes. And then eventually Ryder ended up falling to the ground. And Brian, I don't know if you were able to pull it up, but we can actually, on that clip of Ryder falls, you can actually hear Ryder fall to the ground. We'll try to listen for that.
Yeah, we have the audio up now. Take a listen.
It's real subtle. It's hard to hear, but there's a bit of a crash, a bit of a squeal. And of course, I think this is Cruz here in the nest. She is alert and wondering just what the heck is going on, but it's pitch black. So it's a tough situation for that young eaglet all of a sudden. And then the parent is like, hey, what's going on? The other, the siblings they're kind of oblivious to things, probably as they should be at this age. But the eaglet, and again, in a bad spot right now. The eaglet was still too young to return to the nest on their own. And the parents might have been able to provide some food and protection, but Ryder's chances were really slim on the ground. Thankfully, biologists with the Institute for Wildlife Studies were conducting field work on Santa Cruz Island, and they were able to go to the Frasier Point territory that day and assess the situation. At less than a month old, Ryder lacked the ability to walk, hop, or fly, so the IWS staff knew to look for the eaglet below the nest. Andor and Cruz, they were up in the air as the people approached, alarm calling. Sasha and Zuma, the other eaglets, were hunkered down in the nest to avoid attracting attention. And IWS staff approached the nest, quickly located Ryder, and they were prepared to transport Ryder to an accredited wildlife rehab facility if necessary. But Ryder appeared healthy enough to return to the nest. So that's what they did with them. It's a myth that parent birds will reject their offspring if humans handle them. So the IWS biologists, they did a quick physical check of Ryder. They found that Ryder was okay. They climbed the nest tree and reunited the eaglet with the family. So we thank them for their work, and we wish the eaglet family at the Frasier Point nest all the luck in the world. I certainly want to discuss this situation more with Aaron Weiner from the Institute for Wildlife Studies in our next Bald Eagle play-by-play program on May 7. So we've been doing a lot of Raptor Resource Project play-by-plays about bald eagles. We're going to head to the Channel Islands area with Aaron Weiner and talk about their work over there and the activities at these nests. That program is coming up on May 7. So stay tuned for that. Certainly mistakes are a part of life, and luckily for Ryder, their mistake wasn't a tragic one. And the Ryder seems to be doing well in the nest this morning, last I checked. And then also we have in the mid-continent of North America, speaking of the Raptor Resource Project, the Decorah Fish Hatchery Territory, Hatchery Dad and Hatchery Mom number 2. They have 2 chicks there, looking good, doing well, and we expect them, if all goes well, to fledge in mid-June. Also with the Raptor Resource Project in the Philippine Eagle Foundation, still checking in every once in a while with Biani, who is doing well. Recently moved to a new pen outside. Again, but if you're a night owl, that's the time to watch, at least the night owl on the east coast of North America, because it's overnight hours is the best viewing hours to see Biani do their thing. We also have owls to check out. We're almost done with the egg watch. It's grown and grown and grown. But our great gray owl actually has at least one owlet in the nest to hatch on April 30. We don't know if it's just one chick or many chicks in there. I think we're going to need them to get a little bit bigger before we know for sure. But our Owl Research Institute located this nest again this year. It's going to be really fun to see those chicks grow. Then our great horned owls in Charlo, Montana with Hootie and Wonky. One owlet in there growing big, looking good. The black willow tree that this nest is in is conspiring against us, though, because it's obscuring a lot of our view from time to time, but we're still getting some good glimpses of this great horned owlet. And I think we can look for that owlet to start to branch and move away from the nest maybe sometime in mid-May. Sticking with Montana for just a moment and the Owl Research Institute, we have an osprey nest to welcome to Egg Watch. We actually have 2 eggs in the Charlo, Montana nest with Charlie and a new female this year, an expected hatch, probably early June for this pair. And the female just laid her second egg at the clutch this morning. In Chesapeake Bay with the Chesapeake Conservancy, Tom and Audrey, they have 3 eggs. They fledged 3 chicks there last year. So I think our hatch maybe late May and perhaps early June for these birds. So check them out. Great camera to see. And then great blue herons. We want to welcome into the world at least 2 chicks in this nest on the Delmarva Peninsula of Maryland. April 27 was the hatch of at least 1 chick. And expected fledge here is probably mid-June. I think the parents are going to care for their chicks, and chicks spend at least 7 to 8 weeks in that nest. So that's going to be a fun cam to see those little bobbleheads poke above the nest of sticks. Finally, spoonbills, other wading birds. We are getting some amazing views of nesting wading birds at the Alligator Farm Zoological Park in St. Augustine, Florida, including these baby spoonbills. I mean, look at those. Just amazing views. Thanks to our camera operators who give us such great opportunities to look at these young birds in their nest. We'll soon add more nests to our live collection of cams, including the return of Atlantic puffins to the Explore.org community very soon. every day when I watch, I'm reminded of the work and commitment of parent birds, as well as the hope and sometimes the fragility that newly hatched birds represent.
Awesome. So much to celebrate now and so much more to look forward to. Mike, not bird related, but we also have a new puppy cam return.
That's right. Yeah. Our Northeast Canine partners have just introduced to the world a new litter of puppies. Northeast Canine is a nonprofit organization located in New Hampshire that specializes in breeding and training Great Danes to support veterans and first responders. So these are future service dogs. And right now, Jojo, the Great Dane, gave birth overnight and early this morning. And as I understand it from just looking at a few of the comments on the webcam, it was a bit of a complicated birthing for Jojo, including a visit to a vet and maybe a cesarean birth. But the puppies are doing well, as far as I know. I'm not actually sure how many there are, but many of them. So do account for me, go over to those cams and check it out. And also learn more about what they do at Northeast Canine on their website at northeastcanine.org.
I know it's always hard sometimes to get the latest updates before the show because we are live.
It's always changing.
Always changing, but that's the fun of it. And as much as we can watch all of these live cams, we do have some more live events coming up, including our regular shows starting tomorrow at 7 a.m., the Africam show, if you feel like going on a virtual live safari. And then on Thursday, we have our other Africam regular show, the Wild Moment show, to see all the best highlights of the Africam cameras. And as Mike mentioned earlier, we're going to have our very first play-by-play with the Institute for Wildlife Studies. So get live interpretation and updates from the Channel Islands area of bald eagles. And of course, join us next time for the next More to Explore on May 18th. And that is our show today. We will leave you with some more highlights from the new Masai Mara cams. Excuse me. And of course, at the end of the show, I want to give a special thank you to our moderators and camera operators for making the magic happen. And of course, I want to thank Simon Terry and my co-host Mike Fitz. And join us next time for another episode of More to Explore again on May 18th. And until then, happy exploring.